Hey, that's Dave. It's eerily quiet.
Hi, Venerable Steve.
Oh, hi. Good. I thought maybe. Hi there, Venerable Youngjin and Kath and everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Good. That's great. How you doing, Dave?
I'm well, thanks.
Good.
Nice.
I don't recognize the beard.
No.
That's a development.
Yeah.
Venerable, just to let you know, as you're probably expecting, Rinpoche is going to allow a little bit of time for Q&A.
Yeah.
Towards the end. Yeah.
Yeah, usually he does.
Yeah.
It's quite rare that he doesn't. Hi, Richard.
Venerable, you're pixelated.
I'm pixelated. What does that mean?
Just that the definition of the image is not fabulous. I'm just being playful.
It's not happiness.
No, I said the definition of the image is not fabulous, but I'm just being playful.
That's partly because I don't have enough electricity. It looks like the Dong Daigi Ling is there already.
Ah, I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. Oh, there's Rinpoche. I don't think we want to see this. We want to see Rinpoche. See if I can do this. Kath, are you going to be introducing this, or what's going to happen? Normally.
Could I leave the honors with you?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Normally there's an announcement for the center. So hi everybody, and Rinpoche Tashtele.
Tashtele.
Tashtele. Mimambo lezo. Ne. Tanda goes to the tigre bala.
Oh, really?
Mite Ewangi Dogena Dajina Jeva Jo Edanguru Rana Mendala Kani Tayame
Sanje Cheda Soje Chona Chanju Bakutani Age Jinsu Sanji Tonamji Dola Penja Sanjo Sanje Cheda Soje Dani Soje Tage Soje Tonamji Dola Penja Sanje Cheda Soje Chanju Bakutani Rola
Rola pinches I Druparajo.
Daddy Samdi Samdi Daddy Dari zo nyamsulang se dirbe.
No, let it.
Tate nyale du she mogoche.
No.
Ta Dari zo nyamsulang se dita. Dari milu lenji toba dui sigari. Ta kewa thoma mebane tade pardu te lu padu mebalang. Ani alam bare di ani karisugure. Lamba tamje teme song du sam. Ta ding du kewa padu mebalang yarba.
No.
Lamba di teme song du sam. Ta dari milu lenji tobe dui dila. Zu ta nyamleji chigi sambarji tete dari zu nyamsula seatiri.
No. Where we got to in the text, or where we're starting off from anyway, today is in the 7th of the 7 points. And if you have the different advices numbered in your text, then we're on the 14th one, which says, well, maybe in the version that you've got, it starts off, exert yourself, especially at this time. In my version, it says, from today, practice the main thing. Today means this day, this time, this occasion when I have this precious human rebirth with all the leisures and endowments. Because since beginningless lifetimes, I've taken infinite bodies and all of them were meaningless. So now that I have this precious human life with the leisures and endowments, I'm going to practice the main thing. No.
Adatine karisina ani dari zu da nyamsulang seatita sheja di padu meba yarba.
No.
Pene nyamle chia di padu meba chiari. Mambu yarba. Ine ya ta dusu kanga chedi jene chedi tundu yarba. Chedi tundu yinba che nyamle di mambu che nyamsulaya di. Di yinsa ta di nane nyamle ge nane zu jik nyamsulins. Pena tene sheba da tuba nyi jinane tuba te zu rubiche che tuya di. Da tuba di layang ani nyamne tele nyamne che mambu yari chamba da nyi ji ta chanju ge sem la soba mambu yiwe nane ta chanju ge sem di zu nyamsunam ta namgyu lobchung mambu chigirba lobchung tu si chene yang ta gyundu nyamne chiyaji nyamne di kanga kasa gali chene nyamne di ta gyugu yamari chasa nyamne ki zu chik rangi gyundu chiyaji su damgu yari di yasa ta nyamne ki nyingbu ta chanju ki sembris di yasa nita tari zu nyamsuliya di sheba tu tuba niki nani tuba tu zu che tuba chiya tila ya nyamsuliya tila mambu yari mambu nani ni chanju kisim di ta nyingbu re ta nyamsuliya ki ta nyingbu di zu di ta chanju kisim di yisa tari nge chedun tila ani nitubi chidu tila ta nyamne tendu nyamne chia tengu yuvarab chia dita chanju kusimdi zo nyam sulingi sambache la shala lobjong mambu chigri te lobjong tu su chenayang nyamne di lobjong chesa nyamne chia de mambu yari metabat ta dunye ta shibu yarba di nane ta chanju kusimdi zo nyam sulingi sambache gadu ine ta rangi nyamne chia di chanju kusimdi che lobjong chia di mambu chigri ba oda di sene ani chanju kusimdi nyam sulingi ina ani 다 냠내기 님부터 대티리 뒤에서니 다 다리 주 냠설라야 디 시아바도 두 번이 지나네 두번 냠설기 두배 나네 냠설라지 만부 예배 나네 장주 그 셈딩에 메시텔이야 장주 그 셈쿨라 냠내기 주 제기 삼바르 지베텔 다리 주 냠설라 세야디 주 냠설라야 디다 파닝부들 되네 장주 그 셈데 장주 그 셈데다 패인의 빠드메버리 장주 그 셈군나 저 쿠랑기 사기야리 티베 쿠랑기 정기야리 내 산지 주고반 쿠랑기 때기야리 냐손지 인지지벌레 장주 심기 두기야리 모두 하미 고바 장주 심을 때는 두기야리 대다 탐제 타바다 탐제 개베 고반디 장주 심을 때는 두기야리 봐 지기 연선다 다랭에 냠솔나야디 루디네다 대두이네다 냠내 지야디 다 장주 그 셈쿠라이 삼제니 장주 그 셈라 지투투 냠내 지구야 데이터 다레조 냠솔나 세디리스
So what it says here then is exert yourselves, especially at this time. I think there's other translations maybe makes a bit more sense. From today, practice the main thing. That is today. So the main thing, Nyamsulang, our practice. So what that means, there are infinite things to know. And there are also infinite, like limitless practices that we can do. And this life is short, and we can't really do there are infinite practices to do, but we can't do infinite practices, limitless practices. So the advice here is to practice the main thing amongst all those things that we could be practicing the main thing. So what this means is that out of the two, explaining and then practicing, the main thing that we should be doing is practicing. And then when it comes to practicing, there's so many things that we can practice. There's loving kindness, meditation on compassion, bodhicitta. Out of all those things that we could be practicing, the main one is bodhicitta. In other words, we're talking about making a firm decision. Mainly what I'm going to be practicing, now I have this precious human life, is bodhicitta. So we have lots of things to study, and then out of the practices that we, the main thing is to practice, and the main thing is to focus on one, to choose one, which is really the essential one, which is bodhicitta. So again, out of simply Rinpoche kon da de sheba dang druba ni de sheba de shaden shed sa shere de bao sha da shere
sheba pa sheba jiarba
mila pa
sheba jiarba
la
chue sheyaji
oh let's
chue sheba le
no
chue nyamne jeba de zo choi imre
let's
ran a pendo choya.
Los. Yeah, so that was
No, to was at it.
no, let it.
I did to Yatili at Yamnechi Mambu Yarua.
No, let it.
Dinane, Danyam, Nibuti, and Jubism Yamnechi.
No. Yeah, so that was correct. I had added out, but yeah, the thing is, when you think of what's the most beneficial out of teaching and practicing, the one that's the most useful is practicing. And then there are so many things that one could practice. Of those, the most useful, the one which we can really call the essence of the practice, is bodhicitta. So in this short lifetime of the degenerate era, then what I'm going to do is mainly practice that. That's always what I will practice as my main practice. The thing is that bodhicitta, there are countless benefits we can learn about these. So many benefits. In order to, we need to accumulate merit. With bodhicitta, you accumulate merit. We need to purify. With bodhicitta, you purify. With bodhicitta, you achieve enlightenment. Through bodhicitta, you are freed from the suffering of the lower realms. Through bodhicitta, you achieve birth as a human being or as a god. You achieve liberation. You achieve enlightenment. So for this reason, we are advised to make the decision that this is going to be the main practice, bodhicitta. No.
Tatine, Golo Meja says to ba.
No.
Tiriba.
That
Golo Meja said the Golo drew yare.
No.
Golo drew in an Saba Golo say a cherba.
No.
Tati church Jebala Yimari Zami Kajel Mesiba. Church Jedamba Yimachi needs pay church to college Javin pay Delia Gajet Mesivice. Ani chudi tubiya mari. That is ani jitengi chasha chong kebola soba. Tandu yejola soba de jala. Tene kange kaze jene tongne chene. Tandu yejo chea chong kebo tubiya di. Tunge kaze jene di soba chigiyarba. Chö trubdu zamba kange nima chingi chi cheso na di meso viche chö di sha shagi yarwa. Tati chö la kache di meso viche. Ji tengi chadu nyingyo chiya, chong kubo chiya tila. Te kache gande ti chene yang tangne cheba ti. Tunge tang tu lemba tila soba kolo cheba re. So goya di chö druba la kange chaba di tsina kange le tongne chene chö di le jugu yarwa. Di ma jeba che kange chetu chamba chö di nima jingi chi che ni kange chetu chamba chö di sha shagi yarwa. Tene ji tengi ondo chene ta cha duya nye chong ya ki chentu kange kale mambu jo son chebo yagi che kale mambu jagiyarba. Di kange tiliya tongne chigiyare. Di tunge tangling soba se di jitengi chasha tube che tunge gande chuchungne di tangling soba kungiyare. Chö chebe nega su 강에 니마진이 제 강에 태서는 강에 들 메시지 최대 강에 들 동네 제투야 말이야. 아니 서바 콜로지브레 서바 제고서데 아니 나라도 최투바디 전에 강에 가데 지테네 최대 마당아 전에 무튼이 지야지 제베는 다 Sabati Mune Imbre. che dunga tangling saba se jungare tama che che ta dunyin ju che chong ke ba che ba ji de kang pa de me ba ya de ti ti se ne saba che de kang de le saba che ne ani tar chi ma chi ge ya ba ati te ne saba ko lo che ta ko lo tu na ne saba ko lo che saba kum se ate chudube nega su kange che su tele so kubiyare tele sabati chudube gajele sube subasti sigere tunge dangling subasete i yimbala aranzu te chudube chele kange te indu zamba kange tele tona ma chebeche chud patang nima jigni ji chujutu tene kange te indu chud pasha 지게야르바 다드네 나란즈 다드 인주 좀 지야 총커버 지야기 체도 매주 만부 지게야리 매주 만부 제와 뒤에 강에 만부 체게야리 강에 만부 체도 좀 받을 강에 들래 동네 전에 서버디 제단 서버 골로스기리 서버문에 말이 saba kolo sigiri, saba ngone mara saba sayade chuji kaje pene saba ngone tila nuji le jimingi ba saba sayaji urba nuji ki nuba cheba diye sena saba kumya jiyari ya chu tuba sayate kange mambu chegirba tila tine dunge mambu ti kange mambu chegirba tila dunga dalang saba sayachiri. Ani tine cholange togu saba sumiyaraba. Saba sayati tine chishagu yarami shui. Jitengi chasha tuju tsamba dunga padu mebala dunga chiyati chida. Saba sigi jiri jitengi chena. Kote saba mare saba kolo sigire. saba che ko se chile ma che saba che mo se chile che batale ta saba kolo che kolo tu gnan saba kolo se che
No. Then the next one is called Don't Misunderstand. Yeah, so this is talking about 6 types of misunderstanding or perverted understanding, sort of twisted understanding of things. And of those 6, the first one is perverted patience. So when we talk about patience, we're talking about being able to make light of harm that others do to us, not get angry. And there's the patience of being able to accept difficulties in like in your Dharma practice. Difficulties arise, then you keep going. You're not discouraged. And then there's the patience of that you need when ascertaining the Dharma, gaining certain realizations about the Dharma. So what this here is talking about is instead of practicing patience, that's actual patience. Instead of practicing patience, you practice Dharma for 1 or 2 days maybe, and because it's difficult, you give up. So because you've given up, then you don't achieve anything. You don't achieve the goal that you intended to. So not having that patience, not being able to practice patience in that context of Dharma. But when it comes to destroying your enemies, protecting your friends, making profit in business and so on, you're willing to work so hard at that and to put up with all kinds of difficulties that might arise. So this is something that maybe people in the world would call patience, in the sense of being, the person's got this ability to be very, this fortitude, this strength to keep going despite the difficulties. And so it's similar to, the patience in that way, putting up with the difficulties. But this is not real patience. That's not the real practice of patience. So what we need is the patience with the Dharma. But instead of having patience with the Dharma, a little bit of difficulty, we give up. But we're willing to put up with so many difficulties. As I said, overcoming enemies, taking care of friends, making money, and so on. No.
다더니 아니 그래 서바콜로베
Lolare, Dambodil.
대티 나는 딜 서바콜로스게 다티 나는 다티 나는 지다 최세야 딜레 최래야 끝 최진열의 끝도 봤으게 최래 끝도 쓰게 끝도 서바타비 끝도 메세디 최근에 끝도 분안에 서바타비 끝도 메스 그래 지다 지나가는도 최지야 딜레 강의 친부지 최진이 만들었지 현다지 제시스는 나도 보고 준주의 지낸다 매개 지낸다 최제거리에서는 아니 강해지지 제를 지단 최지도 좀 강해 최지야의 강해를 최제버디에서는 또글에 동굴구야래 또라군 동굴 그걸 경험을 아니 가르스고에 또그다 땀라 경험을 어다 전에 또그 땀숨라 경험을니 아니 최적으로 봐 제산에 최제야들 최제야를 끝투바스기래 끝투스 그래서는 최적으로 해서는 강연 누가 안 한줄라 안토바치치 신다지레가 제스네 야들 둥둥다 치치그래 당년에 치체 최제가 전에 최지제고 전에 강해지기도 같아서 최라 것도 봤어요. 뒤단에 최근에 것도 제 서바들이 서바들 것도 메스 서바들이 배 강에 체인도 동네 지야디 미기 네바 체인도 들라 동네 지네 내질이 지면이 벌써 공부를 봐 강에 침부를 봐 제산에 지단 최지야디 강에 지리 샘부터네 강에 지태게야리 벤조롱 주고 전에 강에 태게리 최지기 있는 벤조롱 줄라 지 벤줄롱줄을 중그럽지 캐리네 뜻을 벤줄을 좀 캐리네봐 롱줄을 좀 캐리네봐 땀을 좀 캐리네버려지 구구야리 제사 지단체네 아니 어디에서네 최제스도 뭐 강해야지 야 지den기 자샤 두야들 강해 지충해야 띠뭐 금식이 제버려 뭐 철을 공부매 지den을 공부만 보여봐 뒤에서 다 단다 최기체도 가젤 서버디 야네 양도 공디제 강에 체인도 담아 되게 동네 지기제 아니 지den기 체도 지den기 자윤 단두인 주제야 총크버제들 아니 Sabati, Chita Sabat, tea, so Triatilia, Kange Gia Jereba Tilita, Kange di Kange Mazivice, Karesure, Karesene, Chusigneti, Nimachik Chujene, Sedi Tunda Mari, Sichime Tunda Chitukari, Chimane Chiman, Dewa Tuviage, Yamne Chichigari, Tindeka Samlutani, Chula, Shabati, Sekaje, Donaji Kuberi. Tadunya Yujiata, Song Kebachia Tilib, Sabat, Kazil Donaji Bati, Chiman Yasundu Kia Tilaya, Ani Donaji Surge. Tadunya Yujana, Tapa Tuveri, Yen Jungveri. 차당 공부 전에 손에 내가 지치고 여러봐. 될 때는 아니 치마를 삼는다는 천들에 가르쳐 그래. 매지 디링을 디지 챔프 용기야래. 디지 챔프다 간깔에 가야지 못해야 매버지. 다 치마는 아니 삼도야 매버래. 치마 내 숨기 통에 멘트 매버지 여러봐. Surely you must catch a chevina. Yes, soon the tire tub. Yes, soon the master, any one to go on to your tub. What in there some nitani? Sure, Chevati, Kange Chevatele Tonaji query. And it's so Tadini Julasoba. So Kebola Sobatella. Any. Kaze Chimbucheni, Tuviati, Chimanyawa Tuvia, Nyawa Tuviagi to Kali Kevesurchigiare, Nisane Tusula, Samlutileta, the Tani, any church to Sabachia, Kange Sukuya. Jiting Tadini to the Chong Kebachivatele, and Kange Tone, Giadi, dead pataring to Tayada. The Charlotte Chiachiri. Charlotte. Tandini just said it is a Shalecia Marico. Yagachi Marva. So Kebo said the Chidaya Mari. So Javiati Chima did a Chimani Sonja Vesurchiava. Odi is a to Sultane, Shula Gaches Subati Yaketan. Jidele Gajet, Jidengi Chawashatubati. Gajet Chigaba, the Gajet Tiller, and Messiba. Gajeti, and Messiba Gajeti, Nuru Tayati, Ketchumbi.
So again, we're on the first of these six, the perverted or misunderstanding about perverted patients. Anyway, let's call it that. In general, somebody who is practicing Dharma is called an ascetic, where an ascetic means somebody who is able to face difficulties, who's willing to live their life facing difficulties, putting up with difficulties. And in fact, there is one scripture that says there's no ascetic practice like that of patience. So what that means is there's no Dharma practice quite like patience. And so the reason why a Dharma practitioner is considered to be an ascetic is because practicing Dharma is difficult. the reason for that is that when you practice Dharma, then it's like you're losing out. You're losing out on. It's like you're making a loss when it comes to food, clothing, reputation. So you accept that loss and you keep going with your Dharma practice. So that's why it's difficult for our minds when it comes to worldly things. Just because of old habits, we find it quite easy to keep going, even though it's difficult. Whereas with Dharma practice, it's something we're not so used to. So we do find it more difficult for the mind. When we think about practicing Dharma, even if you practice Dharma for one day, it's not for this life, it's for future lives. And so it makes sense that one would put up with any difficulties that might crop up while you're practicing Dharma that day. Whereas, so when we think about putting up with the difficulties in order to make money, to make a huge profit, then it's possible. So putting up with the difficulties. So we're putting up with the difficulties. It's like we're putting up with the difficulties in order to be able to go to the lower realms. We're willing to put up with the difficulties so that we'll be able to go to the lower realms after this life. So, because it all comes out of attachment and anger, doesn't it? Taking care of friends, subduing your enemies, trying to get a big profit in business. So, and then you might get a little bit of happiness out of that, something like happiness. But when you think about the future life, then there's so much suffering that you're going to have to experience as a result of that. Whereas when you're putting up with difficulties practicing Dharma, that's more like putting up with difficulties for the sake of the profit of many future lives. So it's like a business enterprise that brings its results in future lives. So it's for this reason that even though it's considered to be difficult, and it is difficult, still we should keep going despite the difficulties. No.
That in Dumba Colos.
No.
Church Drubala, Ane Church Drubala, Dunya Mechibache, Dumba Church Dumba Mechiba, Dunya Machiba. Chendi Benjo which to Tuyagi Chetu, Dunya Jang, Chendi Benjo, and the Trubag Dumba Chia Chierba. Did Dumba Colos Gerda? Church Drubalata, Church Drubala, Dunyig Dumba Kubiare. Tati Church Drubala, Dunyig Dumba Chiabena, Sendila Pingiare, Chimala Pingiare, Chimat Chiman Tamjel Pingiare, Dimajevich, Sindi Banjo Benjo Longjulet, Dubalan Dumba Chia. Sendi Benjo Dungu Chebala Dumbatang, doing a chimbachi, Dumba Colosigere. Sendi Benjo di Sendi Tendi Tamgi, Dewagi Tabramjere. The Tachi to Tindele Dewag, Benjogi, Tindele Dewa to be there nearby Yamari, Benjo Teletene, Tindele. So sure yari Benjo Tiletene Kashir Rang Tacha Viari Takanje Sendiletene Shula and Dumba Chavina Sendela Pemba Chima Penjela Pemba. And it's in the Benjo which you do Dumbatang doing it Chevatigi. Chidan Chenet Sindi Tamri. She do Benjo Kande Uni. Tindu Tamia Kiwa Yamari. Sedele Benjo Liteni, Rang Social Yari. Benjo to which to Kange Pat maybe kill. 강에 주변에가서 차당을 소부딘데 디버 만부치 사기야르바 제선에다 먼저 듬바지야데 쉐좀 투바게 듬두기 듬바다 되니 제구야레스 틀린 듬바세야데 듬바 첸드 친이 된데 마테레 데마제베 첸데 벤주 체도 되니 두베 체도 되니당 디체도 듬바 잡부제베티 단 듬바 콜로시게레 인다디다 지다 쉐르 듬바 제바당 쉐디 아니 가르소그레 쉐 좀디당 쉐기 냠နယ်베바 베나 센델레 케바야레 체치만네 치만레 케메 키주야레 첸디 벤조라 tumdugi tumbadang dunyi jebala teni chendigi keben zamchiri chendilina chendiyara zu me lochu tishitevene lochu tigirila kebera chitugiyaga suritiri te ngebaya mari ni shive odu benjogi nebarabichi mishochigi chakshinchana benjogi랑 심말라 동행 덴바치기야레 심말라 땡두담 핑계야 말봐 어디 삼네 아니 덴바치야 돼 철에 등이 덴바당 덴바치고야레스 아니 첸디 benjo라 덴바치바티 동행단 덴바치바티 덴바콜로레스 제네다 콜로스움 레송아 덴바콜로스제
콜로니 No. Kalau ni berwala. Siapa kalau dumba kalau.
Oh, mereka juga tidak. Siapa kalau ciri bah.
Lau.
Tambutil siapa kalau bah.
Nade.
Ada. Ni betul lah.
Dumba kalau.
Dumba kalau cik.
No.
Timber.
No. Yeah, so the second one then of these six is the perverted aspiration. So it could be a misunderstanding or misunderstood, misguided aspiration. What this is talking about is having no aspiration to, no interest in practicing Dharma, but having a lot of interest and aspiration towards becoming wealthy in this life. What we need is, of course, the aspiration to practice Dharma, an interest in Dharma. That's real aspiration. That's proper aspiration. Then the aspiration for something worldly, the wealth of this life, that would be this kind of aspiration, the perverted aspiration. And the reason why we need the aspiration and interest in the Dharma is because that's something that's going to help us in this life and in many future lives. Whereas when we talk about having an interest in wealth, an aspiration to be wealthy, then if we succeed in if we get the wealth that we aspire for, that we're interested in, it will only help us in this life. And in fact, what we can say is it may help us in this life, but actually there's no guarantee. The most it can help us is in this life. And even that's not guaranteed. Besides which, you can lose your life in the acquisition of wealth. You can lose your life once you've gained the wealth. You can make enemies on the way. Whereas with the Dharma aspiration and the Dharma interest, then this is something that helps us in this life and in future lives as well. So, for example, if you're going to live another 10 years, that wealth might help you for those 10 years, but actually there's no guarantee that it would. Whereas in the next life, because of you know, what we're talking about is an aspiration that's motivated by attachment, then all it's going to bring is suffering in the life after this, because it has no ability to bring us birth as a human being or as a god, does it? So it's only going to bring suffering. No.
That's Ronyam Golos Theta Che Tavada Sambata Kumba Many Sumjikone and Chigi Ronyati Ni Ronya Sugar Ronyamati Tatu Koyachiraba Tima Jeviche Jitingi Tewag Ronyon Chebati Ronyam Colosigari Manage Ronyati Tavada Sambata Kumba Sumjik any Sumla Lamne Church Roti Yunguyarba Church Roti Yunguyarba Tima Jebeche Ni Tipasha Jidengi Tewag Ronyawat Yungetilla Jidengi Tewa Jerba Jidengi Tewati Tewagi Tilla Ronyaw Stigi Tewatilla Chani Tewatilla Tundu Yabati Ta Jidengi Tewala Ronyo Asigari Mundu Ronyo Yanti Karichure Chola Tosam Jani Chug Tuati Ni Ranjula Chug Tuati Karizane Chola Tosam Kusum Teni Ani Sichi Yamsalambaletini Sendele Tiji Yungere Chimala Tiji Yungere Sendele Tewala Longchuguyare Chimala ni Tewala Longchu Tinguyarba Ti Longchu Sugar Roti Manuache Jidengi Tewagi Ronyoate Jidengi Tewad Sendigi Jidengi Tewa Ani Sagu Sola Longchene Ani Neme Tewaji Yungurba Tewati Tsu Ronyo Tewati Tsu Tundunye Cherba Ti Sendigi Ani Sendigi Jidengi Teoga Ronyo Yati Sendele Digiti Yunguyare Chima Pengela Tewati Ronyo Yamebere Chima Pengela Tewati Rominyo Chima Pengeti Tewati Ronyangi Chima Pengetu Tumegila Nesulunguyare Karsa Jitengi Jawa Tewati Chabarva Jitengi Tewati Cha into Chashinki Jitengi Tewala Chashinki Chashinki Tiongi any Lemambusa any Tiletine Nyawala Sabatus Kira Chesanta Ronyong Yati Tewego Ronyong Yati Chug Tewati Roti Yonguyare Troadi Yongu Ronyong said Tewati when I Chiringam Chazana Chiriti Ronyong Yati Namati Ronyong Ronyong Tinashi Che to some person the Sabbath Yamnechene Chug Tewatilla Ronyong Atilla King Yongu Santilla Ronyong Yati Chinja Malovachere Timajeva Jitengi Tewala Ronyong Ati Jitengi Tewala Chane Ti Jesu Ani Shubyati Ani Jitengi Tewala Ronyong Sigari Telechene Rampunga Jigta Sendile Pungari, Chichimale Pungari. Just until 대화가 론용야지 추가 대화들이 론용 구야리 지den게 대화들이 론용하디 소 말이스 대 론용 주야 말이스 그래 지den게 대화디 론용수나 지den게 대화들 차발라더니 아니 레 메가와사 tel더니 아니 냐송네 줄라 소버테달라 동두그르바 추게 대화로 냥수는 챈들레 디지 인구에 세치말레 디지 인구에 제상은지 추게 대화로 디 연구에 디 제발라 추르 터바지 삼바지 공바지 근데 제발라 때네 아니 대화지 인구에 봐 대화디기 추게 대화디기로 연구에 디기 딜레핑 대화되기 치말라에 대화 지den기 대화들 대화로 용하이나 딜레야 대화 챔비 중국에 봐 대화 친구들 대화 친구들 딜레니 딜레 차네니 딜레양 첸딜레양 메대화 용구에 강에 체베데 체치말라양 대화들의 차배 온기 레 만부사네 아니 치마 편제도양 강에 체그려 봐 띵산타 문주 좋아하는 용야한테 추기 대화되게 좋은 용구리스 지den게 대화되게 좋은 용주야 말이야 텔레 철규야 말이야 지den게 대화를 철규야 말이야 추게 대화들 전도 예배꾼네 대초 전도 예배꾼이 대다들 로용 골로스야 되들이 최기 로마뇽아체 최기 대화디가 로용 그발라 디 마뇽아체 지den게 대화 팀비디를 로용아티 다 로용 골로스야 되지 다 그렇지.
No. And thirdly, there's the literally it's a ronyong, so like the tasting the flavor. Wrong misunderstanding about tasting the flavor. So what this means is what we need is to taste the happiness that comes from Dharma by listening, reflecting on the meaning, and meditating on the Dharma. So that's what we call tasting the flavor of Dharma. So tasting the Dharma. What we then, in contrast with that, there's the pleasure or the happiness of worldly happiness. Okay, worldly happiness. And so tasting the flavor of that. So tasting that pleasure, that happiness. Because so that's a perverted tasting of the flavor, because when you taste the worldly pleasure, then what happens is attachment arises, and then because of the attachment, then we engage in all sorts of destructive, unskillful karmas, which lead to suffering after this life. So actually, it brings you problems in this life, because of your attachment to it. So you've tasted it, then you're attached to it. It brings you problems in this life, and it brings you problems in future lives. So that's not the happiness we should, that's not the happiness to, or the pleasure to taste the flavor of. So what we need then instead is the instead of, what this is really saying is, don't be attached to the worldly pleasures. Rather aspire for the pleasure, the happiness of Dharma, the happiness that comes through listening and learning about the Dharma, that comes from reflecting on it and meditating on it. Because otherwise, you taste the worldly pleasure, you're attached to it, and that may, so through that you may end up with a little bit of pleasure, even that's not sure. But whereas when you have that kind of like taste for the Dharma, and you aspire for that, you want that, then you know that will bring happiness in this and future lives. Lo.
That in a niji colos.
Lo.
That ya chitingi chit to Karsa. Tibanato Jebal Tene. Tibanato Chinyegi. Ane Chinyetilla Niji Mijibiche. Tibanato Chinese. Ta chi Benjo Dungula Sobat Chachimbu Chinyetilla. Niji Kigi Yamari. Kope Pe Mi Chuchimburi. Mila Pendo Chimburi, Samadam Yerba. That's just an Tibanato Che. Ani Ticone study. Could Tibanato Chebalateni. Benjo Chachimbu Tuya Yerba. Ti Kuchiati, Tibele Nato Chicheni. Ani ko Domjo Chimbuche. Teletenia. Semje Nurti Chimbuchia Mambuyarva. Tedalet. Niji Magumbache. Power of Jiti. Chugi Chitu Kaje Chinye. Kawachinye Tele, Niji Kumbati, Niji Colori. Chugi Chitu Kawachinye Tele. Oni Tungate Tendugi. Niji Chiati, Niji Colori. Chugi Chitu Kaje Jeverti. Ye Mari sta ku kaje jebatele dewa tubi yar mecho chigi ti dewa tubi yari chigi tiba chigi amarwa ta chugi chido kaje chinye tigi kaje jebati chugi chido chigiri chu seyadi Shembegi Sambar Bateta, Chu Sayati Chida Chene, Sechime Digi Chidu, Bedouin Chinetti Chida Chu Sigari. That Tiba Chimbu Chu Sayati Ran Yeltani Shembegi, Tachetu Shembegi, Jawala Junetilla, and the Tiba Chimbu Chu Sigari. Tilia and it needs Kumkuya Memory. Could Tibele Chimar Yamalundriata Nyasung and to Kiatan. Tiju Tibel and Julia Marie. Just I need to say that to get the tend to be easy to Kuberba. Could to get the tend to be easy to Kubimari. Could be Chia Kangalo to make it Jula Dubia Mari, Teve Jula Duberba. Tatele to get the Tenachi Marus Chavina. Niji Kumbati Niji Colossi. Ya did that. Tiba number not so Jenny. Benjo Nata Chimbo Unity, Niji Kumkuyari. Kukaresene Tiba number not so Jenny, Benjo Lunju Chachimbo Chumari. The Shine Kuran Rosati, Ani Rosania Sumravimishu. Never Solichiriba. Deleta Niji Kogre could let Savages to let it. Let any to me part the member Ching Kugut. Tessin to get the lieutenant mas Lochikos and Niji Kumia the Kolokum Kubiari. Telecolum Niji Magumice Cope Maranzubi. Kumbir of Jacone Kumbir Cine. Kokami at that 지하게 소리치를 떡이 알바.
Mm.
데 추기체도 가와징이 들 카미야도 저거로. 델레 둥에도 텐두기 니지 고무고기야 말해. 데 겁나 다들 니지 델레 추기체도 가제 아니 그래서 그래. 디바나도 남바나도 제네. 롱줄에서 방아다 자친부 인예들에 니지 마곰바체 추기체도 가와제니들이 니지 kum바디 다 니지 콜로스 베나 지주 밀레레베르치나 추기체도 가제마부치 제네 말한테 통화점 기들에 파다네 니지 개하고 유소리 시도가 오다티 지주 밀레레 니지 개야데 니지 콜로르바 산지 주코반 첸델레 산지 주코반이 버티 니니게지 간사지르바 아텔레데 니지 콤네 니지 콜로세게레 니지 콤세야디 냐손도 케네 둥에 설라 메바 뇽니기 간사지레 테네타 니지 콤바티다 니지 무네르바 타데제틸
Then thirdly, fourth one actually is the perverted compassion. So what this means is people who have become wealthy through various nefarious means, creating all sorts of negative karma, cheating people and so on. We don't feel compassion for them. We don't feel compassion for the person who has, gone to war and killed so many people. We feel, oh, this person is such a hero. We don't feel compassion for them. Instead, feeling compassion for somebody who is facing difficulties in their Dharma practice. So we think to ourselves, oh, poor so-and-so, there's so many difficulties in their life. But actually they don't need our compassion, because what they're doing is they're creating the causes of happiness. They're putting up with difficulties in the Dharma practice, which is going to bring them happiness. What we need compassion for is somebody who's only creating the cause for suffering, somebody who's creating the cause for happiness. You don't need to feel compassion for them. So in the Dharma sphere, you have somebody who is putting all of their effort into creating the happiness of future lives. So that's what Dharma practice means, isn't it? To create the causes, to put effort into creating the causes for happiness in beyond this life. So specifically the Mahayana Dharma means giving up one's own objectives, one's own welfare, and being 100% one-pointedly devoted to helping others. That's the way of the Mahayana practitioner. So we don't need to feel compassion for somebody who's practicing Dharma like that. They don't need our compassion, because they're not. Then what they're doing is not creating the cause for suffering. They're only creating the cause for happiness. So they don't need our compassion. Who needs our compassion is the person who has created so much negative karma in order to become wealthy and so forth, and is therefore going to face so much suffering, especially in their future lives. Like in the case of Milarepa. So he put up with so many difficulties in practicing the Dharma, and maybe if we were to look at him, we would think he's an object of our compassion, but actually this would be completely perverted compassion, because here was somebody who was, yes, he was facing, he had all of these hardships, but actually through practicing despite those hardships, he achieved enlightenment in that lifetime. So he doesn't need our compassion. That would be a perverted compassion.
다드네 예심 콜로스 라라야 베 타지도 르 ቄ녜들라 아니 그 가르치고래 자와 상부치를 저르고기야래 디 마제베치 자왕 멤버치를 파자르수나 디 예심 콜로스게 콜라 펜베치도 자와 상부를 마저베치 다 자왕 멤버들을 파 그 개변이 천대기 개변이 치도 자왕 멤버들을 파 저러 제수는 콜라 예심 콜로스 여러스바 그게 라를 르게니 지게야를 르게니 내게 지게야 봐 디나시데 콜레 개분나시 랑기 라를 르게니들 자와 삼부지라 조야기 네 림보치 가르쳐 자와 삼부지를 조야기 탑제고야 봐 디마제베체 아니 신들라 벤조농주의 다 딘데기 영향이 쳐도 자왕 멤버지를 줄 수는 예심 콜로스게 단테 녀르셈바 데베 지동 콜로르 봐 원래 지동 전에 그 라를 르게게는 시 자와 상부질이야 아 좋아지고 그래 디마제베제 그 르게는 시 마제베제 랑기 케베 벤조라 소버티다게 영향이 탑수 자왕에 벌어 줘야 되는데 연구를 봐. 근데 마트다 천재수야로부터 다 간제 되는데 만부야로부터 밴드 두기기 쳐도 자왕에 벌어 파 줄수는 콜라 지둥로 버제버래. 그라를 지둥제니 르게게래. 르게번나 시제니 랑기 그 자와 상부질을 줘야 탑시지고 그래. 디마제비제 벤조롱 주기 치도 자왕 멤버질을 줄 수는 어디디 세심 콜로르 비치르 봐. 디 예심 콜로스 녀라셈바 세디 예심 콜로스 제타 콜로치레스마
No. Then the next one, the fifth of these six, is so Nyenzem Kolok. So it's like a misunderstanding about, or perverted, I think it's more to the point, a perverted idea of like friendliness or affection, something like that. Anyway, you'll see from the explanation. What this is talking about is when there are people who we're close to, who count on us, who trust us and count on us to guide them and to help them, what we should do is give them, get them, doing something really constructive, really positive. And instead, getting them to do something wrong just in order to maybe make a little bit of money, then that would be really wrong. And that would be wrong. I mean, you could call it wrong affection or wrong friendliness. So that's really important. Then they count on us, so we should give them something that's going to actually bring them happiness. Because when they trust in us and they count on us, that means that they're counting on us to help them to find happiness. So then giving them something bad to do, that would be perverted friendliness or affection. No.
제수이랑 골로스. 다 제수이랑 골로스에 들어가서는 되네. 다 코에 대화다. 코에 대화다. 양헬이 대화스네. 콘데기 대화스도 코에 대화제. 달베 대화. 디주 대화라 소버트스 제발라 제수 예라 제고 예라. 제수 예라 제고발라. 델레 제수 예라 마제비체. 셴게 디벨레 제수나. 델레 제수 예라 제수나 마데 시죠. 마디디니 니 미맘불라 소균다 야 딘데 제수나 그 바울레티니 제수이란 제여봐 콘젠부레스 제젠부고브로 질지네 콜레 제수이란 제로디네 제수리이란 고로스게레 그래서네 이때 안한도 시다 윤구르바 지 만두 먹을래 소버티다 윤주담바 대강에 대화 좀 예당 디주 대화 좀 예라 소버티스를 제수이라 매버체 제수이라 매버체 아니 제수이라 매버체 아니 semjela nuti mambuchinye jitin le kubat karsure chinye ta semjela nuti mambuchinye ta tindegi mitu sulaya kwechiya dilaya yapuri sambachevina jesu yera kulosgere kaze 그 자왕 멤버 제버들 제수 예란 전에 디벨레서리래. 겨와를 제수 예란 전에 겨와 두고야래. 미겨와를 제수 예란 메가와 제발을 제수 예란 제수 아니 틀라 메가와 인고야래. 미겨와. 제수네 만한주 제수 예란 제하디. 란초 미메랍지기 현조 미치세스나. 틀라 제수 예란 전에 그 디바파드 메버사기야리. 개와tum에다 대화tum에들 제수이라 메버체. 다지 미세 다지 진해두스라. 야보지니 가와금 샤브들 제수이라 시게리. 디제위는 제수이라 콜로스게리. 어다디 콜로투 시게리 디투버트.
Next we have the sort of perverted, twisted sense of rejoicing. So what this means is rejoicing, when it's correct, when it's, the right kind of rejoicing, proper rejoicing, then it should be, it would be, the rejoicing, thinking how wonderful that is about the actions of creating happiness within cyclic existence and beyond cyclic existence, within samsara, nirvana, and so on. But instead of that, we see somebody who's actually done something very terrible, like going to war, killing so many people, and we think, wow, so amazing, such a hero. Such a great warrior, and we think they're so amazing and we rejoice. Actually, when we do that, then we are creating a huge amount of negative karma. When you see somebody doing something good and you rejoice in that, you think how wonderful that is, then you doing something good, rejoicing at that, then you create a lot of virtue. That's virtuous. You create a lot of merit. When you see somebody doing something really bad and you admire that and you think how wonderful that is, you rejoice in that, then that's very negative. You create a lot of non-virtue that way. So, like for example, when our country goes to war, then somebody on our side kills somebody on the other side, we think, yeah, that's fantastic. So when we do that, then we are creating a lot of negative karma. No.
That's Rejo Mijas. That Rejo Mijas the Church dance, Church dance, Keba Lojong dealer, and Yeshi Mani Padu, a Renga Cup, a Tambu Chanjuk Sem Kip, Taritu Bear said the bear the Chanjuk Semimba. That Chanjuk Sem de Yamne Kange Nani, Yamne Shenda Tigashani, so Chanjuk Sem Sendele Chanjuk Sem de. And you to teen Yamne Chia Dilla Chebraba. Just a Titi Nimakashe Chanjuk Sim, the Chitiche. Yan Nimakashe Chitipasha, Chitiche the Pasha, Tindijena, Renjo Chebri. Nimachi Chanjuk Sim, the Yamnet Shibiche. And then Nimachi news the Yamnet Patang. And Chanjuk Sim Yamnet at Patang. Yan teaches Yamnet Cheba in Renjo Chebri. The Renjo Cheba is an Itala, any Chanjuk Sim Yamneti, any it Karasore, a Renjo Michati, Chichu to Tine, Yamneti, that Chanjuk Simina, Chanjuk Simla, Chichu to Tine. Shogene Kontaki Partela, Chanjuk Semiki Yamnetile, Shoge Yamne, Yingu Yamne, Konda etete. Sani Yinji Tutu, Chanjuk Semte, Tele Yamneche, Chanjuk Semchit, Jayagichit, Sosa Tibjanche. Jawa Sambu Courage and a Chanju Sim Jebichit. Chigi Chebati, that Chanju similar, Renjo Majaba. Chiti to Juni Yamne Chebre. Gyumed Cheba Yamne Chebre. Tima Jebiche Chanju Sim, the Yimani Sumchi. Shibiche. Tene Yimani Sum Son, any Chanju Sim the Pachi. Any Yam Sim Chia, Yamnechia the Pator. Yade Yimani Sum Tonia Chanju Sim Yamne Cheba in Chu Kishin to Yamnet Cheba member Yasani. Tene Chanju Sim Nishi Ketuyamari. Then Yamne the Chanju Sim Yamne Cheba Tene Sichito. Chu Kishin to Yamne Cheba in Anitine. Darile Sanile na Taru Chene. And is Sanji Jukoma Tobala. Only Tanyero Yero. Tinde Yungruba Chesani. Renjo Mijase at Tide.
The next one in our FPMT translation, it says it must be this one. Do not be erratic. So we're looking at the next one, right? In the translation I have, it says, "Don't be hopeful," but that's actually different spelling. Gyumed means like, don't be, like sometimes on, sometimes off, like that, alternating. So what this means, according to the commentaries, with Dharma in general, and especially in the case of mind training. And remember, like it said above, today practice the main thing, which means bodhicitta. So particularly with the Lojong then, your main practice is bodhicitta. Mainly one is continuously practicing bodhicitta. The way to practice is not like this, being, like alternating, which means maybe you make bodhicitta your main practice for a few days, then you drop it, and then maybe a few days, then you drop it again, and you're sort of like on and off like that. Rather, one should be one-pointedly focused on the practice of bodhicitta from morning to night, which means first thing in the morning, you're thinking about bodhicitta, generating bodhicitta. During the day, you're practicing bodhicitta. At night, you practice bodhicitta. The next day, you also practice bodhicitta. Like it says, six times each day and night. You're during, using your time for accumulating merit so that you'll be able to generate bodhicitta, the real genuine bodhicitta, purifying so that you'll be able to do that. Everything you're doing is aimed at that. If you practice like this, what do you call it, erratically, as it says here, yeah. So in other words, on and off kind of thing. Then because you're practicing, you're not practicing continuously. It just doesn't really work. You need to you apply yourself continuously. Otherwise, it's very difficult to improve. Whereas if you keep at it day in, day out, day after day, day after day, then you'll gradually progress towards enlightenment, and that's how to do it. No.
야, 다들 되죠 장스. 다 되죠 장스야 돼 가르스네. 자주고 셈 냠내를 지기는. 아, 태좀 해봐라. 로종이라. 로링기 길네 초지도 좀 봐세. 자주고 셈 냠내를 지기는. 태좀 해봐라 빼지. 제발 전에 다들 탈래 태좀 매봐 아니 자주 있으면 롤링기게네 이 초직도 로중 제스네 자주 있으면 일라 아니 지지도 냠내 지야지야 봐 다들 되주도 장세야지 담부디 멤버도 속에 되주도 장세 멤버기 냠내지도 좀 봤다 싸리 참어 천재네 샤네 아니 멤버디 매주기 치도 배 태좀 간가 주네 아니 냠내지게로 티나시 자주 심지 냠내지바티 세나 아니 로지 디네 때네 태좀 매바스 로종이라 로종기 로링기 게네스 로종이라 사데티단 로조지한테 만보야르바 당간도 제베네 단지 다레조 냠손남세야티 냠손나야틀레 저 자주 셈 샤바임바 자주 셈라 냠내 제발이냐라 태좀 매봐 자주 셈기 체도 텨바제 삼바제 아니 공바제네 베 태좀세네 아니 자주 셈다 아니 로링기 거네 자주 셈 코란 로링기 게네 아니 초지도 중화스 초지도 전에 자주 셈 코라스도 까네 로종 제제라 코라 자주 셈 코라 로스 까네 아니 지도 냠내 제제라 어디라 더주도 장스게래 어디에서 내는지 자주 셈기 냠내디 균트네 지구야 렌저 맞지봐 자주 셈기 냠내디야 태좀 매봐 태좀기야 태좀기 시도스 세네 태좀 매봐니 링기게네 다 자주 셈 딜레 냠내지야디 딜레 하버지 민두스 제네 아니 링기게네 자주 셈라니 초지도 소두간에 자주 셈이는 지지도 지야돼 더주도 장식이래 어디 그래서
No. Now then the next one Yeah, that translation doesn't work at all. So our one says, do not be, do not understand your ability. The next one, anyway. Exert yourself, especially this time. Do not follow inverted E's. We just did the do not be erratic. So it must be this one. Do not underestimate your ability. Yeah, well, anyway, I'm not sure 100% it fits with the commentary, but we'll see anyway. So anyway, that's what it's called. Do not underestimate your ability. What this actually refers to is practicing without hesitation, without any kind of any sense of doubt about whether what you're doing is the right thing or not. So what it mentions here is mind training in general. So we, just think back to the beginning of the class, we already decided that when it says practice, practice today, practice, or on this occasion, practice the main thing, that meant the main thing that you would be always continuously practicing would be bodhicitta. So you want to, we're talking here about practicing bodhicitta without doubt, without hesitation. We already talked about the idea, not practicing intermittently, but practicing instead continuously. So also without any kind of doubts, having cleared up doubts. So what they say in when the Tibetans doctors are training, then they talk about this idea of being completely clear about all of the different energy channels and so on, being completely clear about everything and proceeding on that basis, having no doubts, having cleared up all doubts. So here, how you clear up all doubts would be through the triple process of listening to teachings, reflecting on the meaning, meditating. So within that process, then you clear up all doubts, all kind of like questions have been answered. You've answered all questions. You're completely clear about it. So then on that basis, you engage with a mind which is very kind of like, joyful and alive kind of thing, and completely, free of any kind of feeling of doubt. So not practicing on and off, and not practicing with doubts, having cleared up the doubts. So practicing in that way. That's what this is talking about. Law.
Oi, tatine doji tagar jas duga.
Law la de.
Oda doji doji niji tagar jas ya da doba da jebas ni yare. Doba ti yule zime nambe jubetile. Doba sigiri da jeba chidi yule jeba chidi tamba jeba rim rabjiche. Jebetile yule doba si jeba si di dini yule jeba di dile charu dani jeba dile jeba sigiri tapena nyemu chadan rabjina chaba shi chwaina chaba gobe chedo ani chaba de gobe munjuwa gobe chedo doba chaba de munju gobe chedo beba cheni nyemu shi chwa dimba chaba da tawani nane kari shi chwa dine chaba shi chwa ine di nyembu tengu gare dene shedan che shi chwa ine shedan nyembu tengu re chaba nyembu miduba kumbala soba imba shedan nyembu di chamba kumbala soba rwa chesa chabda nyembu di kari shi chwa che to da 다니 차바시 저 있는 게 차바디 시초도 파 고탑 제바들라 도바스게리 띵 고타스나 드네 시초 차바디 문주도 유아데 가차도 다 Nyamoba Tamje. Want to meet you, Yat, Shebachi, Jojamni. Tati Chabati, want to Chuati at the good number of Chiraba, Tina, Putin, and good number. Tini and Yamu shanty the Yambute Marba. Chabati, Yambuti, Chabati, Ma, Shuchelo Chin sooner. Then you must tamjet, what did you at the Mindu, somebody with your location, Yanjo Chebacheni. You move the you move Chamotinde, Modu Kurumi to Chebache. Chebatene Chaba Jesagi, you don't think you to Chesona, Yan Chabangon to Jugutuna, young girl Chebati, Chebatartani, Chebasetri, Chebatartani, Yumu Chamu Gobagi, Bezujeni, Yumu Chamu Chavati, Gobechet Bezuchiatila, a Chebasigari, or the isn't Dojing Taruja Seati Tambu, Yumu you shit Chavatinia Gone. They go no Saduzabata, Yumuba Tamje. Minju Jungu Mindu Sambaravit, Jung Minju, Yumumba Shenda, Mundu Juguto Mindu, Yang Susu Samlatani. You do what in the Yutu Chesona, Chabaravit in the Mundu Jugutu, the Tamat in the Mundu Jugutu. Tati Chabatamut go to Yamarva. Yang Guru Chabacheni. Chaba Chamut Goyagi Chetu. Nimbutembatilla, Chabasiari. What that just Rangi Jujumu Nyambutembatitina, Doju Nijugune, Ane Nyamu Nyambutenku, Tisa, Doju Nijitara Jazz.
No. Then the next one, it goes on to mention be liberated by the two, examination and an analysis. So this comes up in the mental factors. It's a pair of the mental factors, the variable mental factors actually, just by the way. So the Toba and Joba, so examination, often these are called general investigation, precise analysis, or general examination and precise analysis, because the first one is more sort of like superficial, more general, and then the analysis is when you're looking at it in more fine detail. So what this means is, so yeah, the examination is a mental factor that has more of a sort of like a general aspect than the analysis is a mental factor with a more precise, more detailed aspect, on the object. So it's a question of proceeding from the more superficial or more coarse mental afflictions, and then gradually working through to the more subtle ones. So, for example, of the different mental afflictions that you have, or mental afflictions you have, let's say attachment, out of attachment and anger, the one which is predominant, which you find in yourself is predominant. If that's what it is, then you would mainly apply the antidote to that. You would put effort into stopping the manifest forms of attachment. If it was anger, then you would be putting your effort into stopping the manifest forms of anger. So in the case of attachment, that would mean applying the antidote to attachment, which would be reflecting on repulsiveness, the repulsive nature of the object. And in the case of anger, or maybe more precisely hatred, dangwa, hatred, then meditating on loving kindness. So you're checking to see which is the one which is predominant, the most outstanding amongst the mental afflictions that you have, and you work with that, and you try to stop the manifest forms of that. And then you might have a sense that now you don't have, if you just leave it like that, then you have this sense that there aren't any mental afflictions arising. So then you have to look in a bit more, look at it in a bit more of a subtle way, make your way of looking at your mind in a more subtle way, and start working with the other levels of the mental afflictions. It could be, a more subtle form of attachment, for example. So you're, fine tuning your investigation and then working with the different levels of the mental afflictions in that way. No.
yu magum shiba. Ta yu magum sinipena rangi chojo gati jawarab chichesuna. Rangi chugi jawa chebati rangi chidurba. Rangi chidure mishuchi. Shenla yu shaya mebruba. Rangi chojo gi jawa chebati tini shenla ya. Nye jeba yin sam. Ani jebati rangi chichu jebati jebati kala kene. Ani shendala ya ngomsu jeyata. Nye jeba yin chu jeba yin jenbe duyi shaya ke imre nga gange shibu tesu. Chu jeba la tene gange tesu seyak suriche. Dinde chu jeng gange kaze tene shenla yu kumya mebare chu jeba tira andurba. Ani jesane chu jeba la gange teba tiyitsine shenla ya yu shaya ya maris. Gange tene da matene se rangi tene triba. Simjegi pembatuya ke chedurba. Simjegi pembatuya chedu yesa simjeli yu kumya mebare. Simjeli pembatuya te rangi chedurba. Tesere yu magum seati kebe chis kebati tsegi yus zumbe sangyu so mejati keba yin jebe nga keba yin jeni tsegi kone yu shaya jerba tinde chigi amaris zumba yin sangyu siti nga sangbu yin so nga sangbu yin nga zumba yin jeni shenle yu shaya amaris zumbe sangyu mejati shenla len shenla pen tabani tabe shen jebe gombe yu jawa melas yu shin tajiri tene te tabe shin jebe janju sim kumbati ani shenla pen tabani tabe shin jeba gombe gombala yu jawa melas yu shin yobu so rene jila ri stati ganje tabe shin jebe janju sim kumbati shenla yu shaya ya maris te rangi dunda re sigere rangi dunda yimbala shenla yu shaba yin chudi namda ma yimbare tugarba tabe shin jebe janju sim kumbati rangi tsindi tiki ita Chime Digida, Tabata Tamji Kimber Tube, Tabji, Tabsu, Tabishin Kumbe Chanjukism Kumbari. Di Rang Tunji to Kumba Yesani. Shall you share Maricha Chanjus? That in the search, that thing at the Yabuti Sheshimas. Yeah.
No. Now the next one. So it says here, do not be boastful. That seems to be quite close actually to the meaning according to Rinpoche's explanation. So what this is saying is, when you practice Dharma, that's your business. In a sense, it's, that's for yourself. You shouldn't go showing off about what you've done to others, like broadcasting it to others, advertising it to others, telling others, I did this, I did that, it was so difficult, and I had so many problems, but this and that kind of thing. This is something that you shouldn't advertise to others. You shouldn't show off about to others. Like telling people, oh, I'm in the area of learning, oh, I'm quite a scholar, I'm a pure practitioner, and so on. This is really not is not right. That what the practice you do is your business. So we talk about bodhicitta, which cherishes others more than oneself. So when you're practicing that, this is not something to be boastful about. If you do, then your practice is not pure. It makes it your practice impure. When you're practicing bodhicitta, you're not practicing for the sake of this life, nor for the sake of future lives. You're practicing for liberation and then enlightenment, and it's your business. It's not something to tell other people about. I'm not really sure I explained this one very well, but that's more or less what this one means. No.
Tatine Kolum Madam Suduga.
No, let it.
Other Kolum Madam Sati Shangi, Tala Shangi, Mimambu Yusala, ni Mapavana, any Konda Servo, Shejubale, Nulenti. Nube Nulenti Nuba Majashis, that the Mimambu Salachi Mapabala Subatinde Chusuna, Tea Lentilata, Konda Sierravici Lemni, Immaleva Mashu, Pa singing Mabatele. Shell parting money, Lenche Maris, Lem Mijeji, Kone True, Golum Mijas, Tine Kone True, Golum Mijas, Kone Sigua Maris, Shingeran Mapabatitina, and Nikunda Sijane, Dangi. Manasu Lejabatin Debrich Minchani Kunda Suburis Timajevice Ti Palentilla Kundu Jebina Ni Digmaris Su Kundu Jebatilla Kundu Kunela and Mapavatilla Pa Kundu Jena Kundu Kunamapamye Tita Ranchi Paretori Kumapaya Tita Rang Kuleba Kundu Cheventi Chiparete Ni Tima Cheveche Anikonda Chevena Rangi Kawanga Manamsune no Dushive Chi Debra Chiliminsiche Ani Kula Kundu Chiguna Maris Kundu Chesna Mese by you do and do you aches. Condu chess, condu debutella. Sedilla, do me to Bachia. Ani me to so changings. Tamba my batis and meeting to Jachile. Music, Tamba my batis. Chuda Timichi, Namju Troch. Condu Jana. Ani Chuda to my imbabuti number Jiri Shirret Yambare. Can you chew that to me number Jenny? Sushi my imbati papa. Sushi is the Jawas to Gandu Jawa, Tibu Pangu to Chikuera. That chew the to me Namji Trojing. Medusu Suchi, Tamba Mebati, chew the to me Namji Trojing. Mese by new to me and do you adjust. Any condu chesona. Said the shiro to Mandulu to a chigris. You to Mandu to a chase. Tane Tinde chigri, just on a condu chiguyamare. Titsenata Saba Congress. Seve Shesi Tangi and then Namjeto. Seve and Zeshi Kiwu Tambala. Pam dan Lu dan Lumi Shebata. Keba Kushi, Dio to the Hami Kita. She ought to had me combine Montichigri. Tiba Seba Jurus. Oh, that is a name. And a Kundu Chiguyamara Kundu channel. Nebatinde Yare. Ti Chabdele Sobach Kungre, Sobach Kumna. Rana Kibet in the Yaris. Jenny, Tati. Konomi Jasi at the Tire.
No. Now it says the next one, do not retaliate. Yeah, so if somebody says something hurtful to you in front of a lot of people, then one should apologize, thinking, recognizing that this is the result of my own past negative karma, rather than retaliating. In other words, rather than getting angry because of what the person has said. That's what it means when it says, don't retaliate. When they say something unpleasant, don't get angry with them and then retaliate. Actually, if you get angry with them for what they've said, then actually you become as bad as the other person. And anyway, think about the results of anger. What happens if you get angry? Right away, you become quite. Your face becomes quite ugly when you're angry. Other people, good people will see you as somebody that's bad. Though your wisdom declines, somehow your wisdom scatters, and you end up doing things that are not right. And as a result of that, then after this life, then you have the birth in the lower realms. In contrast with that, if instead of getting angry, you practice patience, then that gives the result of that is a beautiful appearance, very pleasing appearance, maybe I should say. The holy beings like you, and then after death, you go on to be reborn as a human being or as a god, and through practicing patience, gradually all of your sins or your negative karmas get used up, get purified. No.
Oh, that is that in that is Kishi land numbers. That is Shemuch. Then you jump on me just that you say, Amla Gada Megave Nam you don't mambu, Tamba Rolla Sembe Mejas, 다 유점바서도 중세 잠지 강에 중세 잠지 텐데 남사 돌에 가버지야 야 돌에 가버미지야 근데 지금야 말했어 돌에티 숨부수기야랬어 제산에 낭미를 붙이리는 강에 중세 티인데야 막가버지 야티 대화르지 팀비주니 양 가버지 근데 지야디 유도 마부지야디 랑다 dünyam도 집에 안에 도도슬라 삼부시비야레스 삼는노비비리 갑질에 가버지 갑질에 메가버지 단다코 가버지기 있으니 한 메가버지 코다 메가버지기도 삼부지 양 가버지 전에 도딜라 삼부시비야레 제산이 월 가르스 그래 남주스 유잠바 미자세티 유잠바 마자시버티 유중세 잠라 중세 잠라 가다 마게베 남주 주도 마부템바티 돌라 셈베스 돌라 도딜 숨부수비야리스 티메자신 로종 냠네 토마르 앙사제 로종 냠네 토마 앙사르지제 제네 치드 잡줄 담블로종 냠네데 앙사르제 니마케시지제 신에서는 미 마다비지 로종 냠네 미 마다비지니 큐르바텔라 치레 잡줄 미자스 다 오지 마트와데티리야
No. Yutamedira. So then the next one, it says, don't be fickle. So what that means is, like with your friends, there's tiny little difficulty arises. Then you're unfriendly with them. You don't like them. Then the tiny little bit of happiness arises. Then you like them. So like that, then your friends will just get fed up with you, and your family too. If you're like that with your family will get fed up with you. Sometimes he's like this, sometimes he's like that. It's just too much, They get fed up with you. So one should avoid that kind of way of behaving. No.
다 origin 마드스디 지 origin 셰바디 가디 셰셰베 된두바임베스 베나 랑기 셴달라야 펜도르 셰베이나 펜다바디 origin 가디 셰셰베 잠야 마중냐바티 origin 두바임베 대다부마자 샹라 펜다 타바딜레테니 셴기 대차랑 가디 첨부 중수네 가디 첨부 중수스테니 치기딘데 마체베이나 제마송 삼버제네 삼드 코스나 origin 두바시게레 쿨베 가디 첨부 제바들베 렌제레 두버바 지난날 편도 좀 가디 체서만 삼상이 아니 지 렌르브지 그런 게 되더라 티까지 체스 말아봐이나 가디 체삼 야 편도 딘데 제비 그걸 가디 체삼 체삼에 체점이 아니 마중 삼바 제비나 origin de basigere ti chigyo amare chebare
Then do not wish for gratitude. What this means is you might help somebody, and then after you've helped them, they don't actually thank you for what you've done. So then it would be really wrong for you to think to yourself, they didn't even thank me, didn't even say thanks. So this is wrong. Shouldn't do that. No.
Chebala Nyanda than Lexu. So Tigitara, Rewa, Pamba Javos, Susu Jev Dele, Ani Nyandas, Susu Cheb, Nyanda the Lexu. Nyamba Tabas and a could Chejeva Delia Yaporis, Nyanda, Tam Dinis Mouth. Ani Charangi Chejevati. Ani Shida Leopard is Sigitara Rewa Pambajo, Sigitara City, Signimbo. No, the Churchiati Nyandatan Sigi Lexur of Dindici, Dene Churchavina, and the Churti Pematovachi River. Churchiat the Rangitunda Chituri. Rangi to the Jebala Kola. Nature Jebatilla. Devaching him into. Tele switching him into Samba Chesun. And they no dream, but it's Chesane. Che Jebala, Nyanda, Dan Lexoso. Sigitara Rawapang, Bajo. Sigitara Sene. Sigi. Chana. Yaporis, number of Traya. Lexuchia. Tinded Pangugris, Churchiat, Susu, Tundari, Mishuchi, Chesan Sigitara, Reva Pambo, Tedara, that is or Jimmy to say a telerita. That is Tedara, Seribur, Dandamta, Kunzo, Sanju, Semibu, Yamne, Tang, Chetovini, Gone. Lebar Chanti Chua Juna, Detarchi, Chida Detarchi Tajuna Tajuna Dedar Lamdu Kena Savata Dumeso Kanda Kanjunya Sindidan Dedar Lamdu Lamdu Lang Mishumbara Oloye Ding Che Tobe Badu Jama Cho Tatiri Ta Cheja Taniti Ta Tedar Cheribus Rangi Cheribu Dandam Chanju Semda Danda Chanju Semdi Tungi Tobe Shirib Terva Kundo Chanju Semnibuti Nyamsha da Jeto Nyamsha Negas Nyamsu Linzu Jeto Genegasu Nijikone Nyamsha da Jeto Nijikone Lebar Changdi Chua Juna Dedar Che Tra Juna Dedar Lam to Kirs Ta Chua Jungsuna Samlu Dadi Chirtina Yadin Chigi Chua Juna Pena Chua Majum Kundu Tongle Gumni Kundu Janju Sim Yamneche Tene Tita Sunata Chisitama Mayung Patu Aniji Chetam de Tobe Pata Tamle Yijimune Tuba Tindu Tame Rashig Tuba Tutame Yambat Tajani Ni Tagengala Ni chiwawe sirabji ngontu chiyaga chibuyari pena ina chiwa majin kundu tongne kumya tongne kunme kundu chanjugu nyamne kyang tene ti chasuna ani ji Tombasum jiniga la soba tinte chile suna sachu tin chumela tin melu la tin lung namshela timba ti tine ta di samla tuya di teze yubayan sa di ta Tombasum shayundu Tombasum shayundu tine namge kam sayatire namge kam tiletene Tombasum jinejos nawa kanamba cheba manamba nyeto nyanamba tati nega tine si chevriba ti partile ta chedam jarangane tuba tene me staje daga 타제네 아니 라시메베들 찌찌도 냠바샤네 체표비나 체표야디 단데 삼노다한테 디리 디단소네 아니 군도 장주고 있습니다. 돈도 장주고 있습니다. 이부터 냠네 지게 봐도 냠네 되면다가 지금 다시 신의 개원 치마 남수양 장주고 있습니다. 면대와 진길로도 수 삼바제 장주고 있습니다. 친지 말았던데 계획신이다. 제발 진길로도 수 삼바제 근데 제외는 근데 다 치게 삼다 되임버려. 어디에서네 대달 체리부 된담다 전주선 군노 전주선 이부 냠샤당 제도지 니주군에 레버 장대 스타디 냠샤게네스 냠샤 남가다고 제도 규모다고 세내줬어야 됐어. 권에 레버를 장대 치워주는 대달제스 다 치워주는 멘틴데 제삼 버릇이 다주는 다주는 양 대달을 남도 체를 삼바 때네 다주는 다디 지다 상에게 나와 근데 지차서네 예 전주그 쌤이 냠네도 캐레 쉐버지 이게 인상 버럽지네 자주는 대달에 남도 캐레스 나자다 동엘에서 버대다 간다 강주네야 아니 주마를 강주는 대체 대단디 남도 냠도 냠도랑 미슌버라 로예 딩 톱에 발도 정화되고 스타트 이제 로중 지지야 되리다 간제 강에 근데 지체선에 전주생 냠내 치르신 거지 강에 지체선에 전주생 냠내를 파게 기부주준에 전주생 냠내를 파게 너나 상에 나와 지셔야 죽은 보통에 냠내 전주생 표현함 주대스 라마치베나 이러 이나 시전에 캐리셔버지 봐도 아니 장주고 씁니다. 냠내 장구야리 쓰게리.
No. Yeah, so the next one then, in fact, the last of the advice is don't wish for thanks. So what this means is when you practice Dharma, then don't think about becoming well known for your practice. Don't think about people telling you that you did well, because again, your Dharma practice is for yourself. So don't go there in your mind thinking, oh, nobody's praised me, nobody's told me that what a good job I do. Someone should reject that kind of thought, abandon that kind of thought, because your Dharma practice is for yourself. In the sense like it's your business, it's personal. So like that, then actually it looks like we've gone on from this last advice and finishing off the text. So in this way, then we try to practice our whole life reflecting on ultimate bodhicitta, which means meditating on emptiness, and the conventional bodhicitta. And so for the meditation on, for either of these meditations, you have how to practice during the session and how to practice in the break. And so it mentions in the text the idea that, having practiced that way, then you would have the attitude thinking, now, when I die, this is what I'm going to do. So thinking, before I die, up until I die, I'm going to meditate on bodhicitta, by practicing taking and giving, tonglen, and then you think up to the subtle mind of death. I'm going to think how nothing exists in the slightest from its own side. So making the decision, the firm intention, determination that when the three empties occur, then which all happens due to the dissolution of the elements, earth into water, water into fire, fire into air, air into consciousness. You're going to meditate in that way. You're going to keep that awareness. So then so the trying to make that kind of decision that that you're going to be maintain awareness that nothing exists from its own side. So then the decision then is to keep your mind one pointedly in that awareness. So prior to that, you would make requests to be inseparable in all your future lives from the two bodhicittas, and to meet with a qualified master. And so through your life, having conducted your meditation sessions, and then the break between sessions, as explained, as described, like in the case of emptiness, the space-like meditative equipoise, then the illusion-like wisdom that you practice outside of the meditation session, and practicing that well, and then continue with the practice even though you might be attacked by enemies, you might experience pain, illness, whatever, reflecting, understanding that all of this is like an illusion, doesn't exist from its own side, and therefore not being discouraged by these difficulties. So then if you practice the mind training in that way, so that whatever happens, whatever difficulty arises, you're going to keep going with your bodhicitta, and not only when there are problems, but even when things are going very nicely, then practicing bodhicitta, just like it says in the Guru Puja, the Lama Chöpa, in brief, whatever appears, whether it's something good or whether it's something bad, it talks about that. So whatever's happening, whether something's good is happening, whether something bad is happening, to keep going with your mind training practice and with the meditation on the two bodhicittas. Long.
다드네 단데티 직니 참마송 니마가 되바예세 될레송아
No, lare.
데네다 직니 지미셔야 말에 제산티 슈라 제 아니 탱지 누가 탱지 가셔지래야 말이 시간 가셔지래야 말이 되디 디슈데 아니 저한테는 제네틱도 디슈라 아니 어디 저한테는 제네 아니 로조 드네버드네 차르레스
No.
차르인사 아니 다가레스
No. Now, so actually that we haven't completed the text yet. There's a little bit left. It mentions about the 5 degenerations. Let's have a quick look. I think that it's the same in our version. Yeah, anyways, no, it's not so clear in that, but anyway. There are slightly different versions of the mind training. So in the one that Rinpoche's been looking at, it mentions about the 5 degenerations and so on. I think in some versions that comes right at the beginning. So I'll explain those next time, and then we can spend. So there's only a little bit left, and then we can spend the rest of the time with questions. So obviously the time's up now. And so we can do question and answer next time after I've finished explaining the mind training. And then that will be it for this 7-point mind training the next time we meet. Okay? Dogen namda jing la je pa jo je zun la me ku tse rap ten jing nang ka jin le cho ju kya pa dang lo zan den be de me sa sun gi tro we mu se ta tu ne yu ru chi e dang guru ra na mandala ka ne Daya me kadan duje kansu chinle chu tochu tabu lunto geze chi loze namla rilan de me ten lamdun gewe shela shabten jo janjo zenjo rinpoche magye panangi kyuchi gyaba nyamba meba ye konne kondu Avarajo jiten kamde pende maluba kanle juwe sambe yijino kanden sume tenzin gyatsola sowa debzo tushi lundu sho jamba bao chita kyambada kundu zambo teyan dejinde teda kungi jesu taloji Gewa dida tamche rabdu nga tusun shebe gewa tamche ki ngoa kanla choto nga bade dagi gewe zawa digun gyang sambo cheche rabdu nga woye. Rinpoche tuji shudenja tuji na.
That's it.
Long. So we can stop there. Somehow I've got Pam and...
Thank you so much, everybody. We look forward to reconvening in 4 weeks' time.
Sorry about all your questions that you've so assiduously wrote on the screen. And
We can save them all up for next time.
Yeah, I think there's a way of saving them actually, but anyway, we'll see.
We'll see. Thank you so much.
Okay, see you everybody. Bye.